It all started in 2009 when I went on a trip to Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida with my family. We had already been there once before, in 2003, but I don't remember all of it since I was very young. This 2009 trip, however, would solidify my passion for the Disney brand and spark my interest in the hospitality industry without even knowing what it was yet. We had what felt like a perfect experience there: rides galore, delicious foods, entertaining shows, and memorable character interactions. But the thing that made the biggest impression on me was the way the cast members treated us. They were so nice and seemed genuinely happy to work there and to help others to have a great time and feel welcomed. I knew then and there that that was what I wanted to do. I didn't even have any idea of what exactly I wanted to do there. I just wanted to be a part of the magic. Growing up, I wasn't pressured to know what I wanted to do. People said I was nice and I might make a good teacher or nurse, but at that time I didn't want to do that. I just knew that I wanted to do what those Disney World cast members did for me and my family, and that was to make people's day, to make them have a happy and enjoyable experience while also enjoying the act of doing it myself. As a young kid, I didn't realize how idealistic and naive of a perspective that was. No kid ever does. They see what's in front of them and take it at face value. And since I saw the magic before my eyes, I believed it to be real. I believed that not only was having a career of making people happy possible, but that I could do it myself if I wanted it hard enough. And did I want it? Fast forward to when I was in high school. I was still holding on to the dream of working at Disney and being a cast member, but not knowing what to study if I wanted to go to college. It seemed like fate that my family was in the process of moving to Florida, and the college that they wanted my sister to go to had recently added a new major: hospitality and tourism management. There it was, the answer to everything. And of course, I went in with rose tinted glasses. I genuinely thought I could contribute to an industry where everyone involved was happy and had the best interest of one another in mind. What's more, I was in the state that's known famously for its travel destinations, including the destination itself, Walt Disney World. So I studied my 4 years and left with a BA and a strong desire to pursue a different career altogether. And even years after graduating, I don't want to look back. Before I explain further, I do want to acknowledge that I am extremely grateful for the education I got. Many people would love to have just the opportunity to go to college. So I didn't feel like the information I learned was a waste, but I'm going to address the issues I see with the industry related to my area of study. As I mentioned before, my expectations and outlook of the hospitality industry were a bit naive, and as the title of the major implies, a lot of the curriculum included business-related courses. I'm sure you know the United States is a capitalist society. By definition, this means that private individuals or businesses own the means of production, meaning whatever resources and labor are used to create a product, it's owned privately, and they alone have control of how to run their business. Other characteristics include prices being determined by supply and demand, businesses competing with one another, and the main goal being to make profit. Capitalism is a free market system with few restrictions, so there's room for practices to happen that go unchecked. That being said, just like any other business class will tell you, no matter what your business is, the main goal is profit. Everything you learn in your specific area of study is to know how to make a profit with a specific type of business, whether it be retail, health services, hospitality. Part 1. Money, money, money. That was the first indication that this was simply another industry that only existed to make money, and then the intention of making memorable experiences was secondary. We don't take a lot of time thinking about it, but the hospitality and tourism industry is a big deal. Travel is very in style, especially with social media influence, and it does generate a lot of profit. According to the World Travel and Tourism Council, in 2024, tourism contributed to around $2.36 billion to the US economy, making the United States the most powerful travel and tourism market in the world. So clearly, with travel being so popular, the industry is going to take advantage of this opportunity to increase profit. I mean, what business wouldn't? People take anything that becomes popular online and run with it to make money. You like Snoopy? Buy these Snoopy cell phone charms, these Snoopy candles, these Snoopy Twitch emotes. But I digress. What does all this profit have to do with the industry prioritizing money and not the customers? Well, let's look at numbers again. According to Budget Your Trip, it is estimated that US travelers should expect to spend around $324 per day. On average, people have spent $96 on meals, $46 on local transportation, and $262 on hotels per day. This is the estimated spending trend for one traveler, by the way. I know these are the going rates, and it does sound realistic by today's standards, but doesn't this sound like a lot? This is a lot for one day for one person. This doesn't even include the expenses for traveling to whatever destination you want to go to. This is after you get there. After the plane, train, or bus ride, which could be around $200 to $300 per person, you have to take into account everything you want to do once you get there. And apparently, it's $324 per day. I know business is like a circle and they need money to provide their services, but how much of that money goes back to providing for the customers? Part 1.5: Cutting Corners. Let's go back to talking about the happiest place on Earth. The reason I loved going to Disney World was not only was it fun for the whole family, it was affordable fun for the whole family. If we look at the year my family went for the first time, 2003, the cost of a ticket was around $52. The cost adjusted for 2024 inflation would make it $88.17. As years went by, prices increased, inflation went up, and now we're looking at the cost of a ticket to be $109 by 2024. These stats are from Yahoo Finance, by the way. So you might be thinking, oh, that's not much of a difference, all things considered. And to that I'd say, yes, it is. That's a difference of $20.83. That's quite a lot to me, but I'd still argue that this is a significant cost jump and it's unjustified for anybody, regardless of status or income. That's because Disney has done some things that feel pretty sinister when you see what's been lost. Thanks to my dad for his military service, because he was able to get discounted tickets for our family. They still offer this, but even after taking rising prices into account, the discount is nowhere near as good of a deal as it was. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but trust me, I looked. My point is, things like this gave customers incentive to go to Disney World. Deals, perks, rewards, and freebies. Pre-2020, aka the COVID pandemic, Walt Disney World offered a lot of perks that could be included in your stay. For starters, if you were flying to Orlando, Disney offered a complimentary shuttle from the airport to the resort you'd be staying at. They also offered a meal plan that you could add on to your vacation, and this allowed everyone in your party a certain amount of meals and snacks per day, depending on the package. All for a certain price, instead of having to nickel and dime every time you ate. The most convenient thing they offered was their old FastPass system. Starting in 1999, guests could go up to a kiosk in front of a particular ride or show if it was FastPass eligible, and print themselves out a FastPass that would be valid for a 1-hour window. You could be able to go through the FastPass line between that window of time, and either once you used the FastPass or time was up, you could print yourself out another FastPass for any eligible attraction. Once they added the Magic Bands starting in 2014, paper FastPasses were no longer available, and you could reserve your first 3 FastPasses for the day if you were making a vacation reservation. Once you used up all 3, you could go on your phone to the Disney Experience app or to a kiosk and reserve your following FastPasses there, and all the information would be on your band, and you just scan and be good to go. This system was free to all guests, but they replaced the FastPass system with something called Genie. This was introduced in 2021, and basically, if you wanted the perk of skipping the line, you'd have to pay the initial fee to be able to access Genie, and on top of that, pay a fee for each individual attraction. When the parks opened up again after being temporarily closed due to COVID, these significant features were taken away and have not come back since, except for the dining plan, which did return after an agonizing 4 years. And I think Genie is still a thing, but there has been word about slowly bringing back the old FastPass ways, just with a different name, last I heard. Take my word on that with a grain of salt. All of this to say, these decisions were not an accident, or out of necessity. They were calculated. Disney continued to withhold these services and blame it on COVID loss, because they figured people will still go to the parks and spend the extra money and still be happy without those perks. Competitors have looked at Disney for decades as the poster child for theme parks and guest service. Although they're failing in some areas, they still make money in others. Who's to say that other hospitality or tourism businesses who are greedy aren't looking at Disney's actions and thinking, hey, we could do that too. Overcharging actually happens frequently in tourist settings. Businesses have a right to set their own prices, but sometimes they change it based on how much they think you can pay. Let's be real here. If you look like a tourist or rich, you might become a victim of overcharging. This phenomenon isn't new and it's not limited to big companies like Disney. This can happen anytime, anywhere. It can happen with services like local transportation or even dining. With this in mind, it's easy to think that other businesses in the industry think this way too, and that they can make extra money at the expense of the customers, ultimately inconveniencing them and making them pay top dollar when they're not getting the most out of their experience. Think about it. If the money that they're taking from the customers aren't going back to making their experience as convenient as possible, then where is that money going? I think we're all becoming more aware and having class consciousness to the fact that there are the wealthy few at the top of powerful companies who just take this money for themselves. The Disney company is no exception, and when it comes to smaller businesses, I guess you can call that scamming, but it does happen in tourism, for sure. Let me continue by saying not only do companies in the hospitality industry seem to not care about the customers, they don't even seem to care about the people who make all of this business possible. Part 2: Modern Day Slavery. When I was in college, a lot of my classmates already had jobs within the industry, plus the curriculum required hands-on experience, so I had jobs in the industry as well. I was genuinely surprised by how many people didn't feel the way I did about hospitality. I thought they too put their desire to help people and make them have a memorable experience first. And maybe they actually did. But the work and experience they put in changed the way they looked at their jobs. The biggest complaint, by a long shot, was how customers treated them. Work hours and pay were also legitimate grievances, but the biggest concern was not about the things that impacted their livelihood, like if they were able to juggle work and school or pay their bills, but it was about their dignity. Something that I think customers tend to forget in hospitality settings is that the people who are there to help them and enhance their experience are people, just as much as they are. I've heard complaints about snobby customers in all types of jobs, not just hospitality. Plus, I've worked retail, I know what this is. But hospitality and tourism is like a different type of animal because the customers are expecting the employees to deliver high quality service. People don't necessarily expect that from fast food or retail. Sectors of the hospitality and tourism industry, like restaurants, hotels, and theme parks, are all examples of services that pride themselves in providing a high quality experience and promising it to their customers. So now, when tourists go to use these services, they're going to expect high quality service. It doesn't matter if an employee is having a bad day and doesn't necessarily feel like smiling, it could result in a complaint, which could impact their job. It can also be very tough for someone working in tourism and hospitality. These jobs infamously don't pay well at entry level, so to make ends meet, you'd have to work full time or get a second or even third job. There is potential if you become a manager, you could make a decent amount of money, but not everybody can be a manager, right? So imagine working day in and day out, having to work with people who don't want to work with you. I have heard while on the clock, don't do that. It's their job. And yes, that's true. We're getting paid to do a job. I just think that's such an insane thing to say. There is a sense of entitlement and privilege behind a mindset like that. Here's where we can really get into class consciousness. Yes, of course, there will be customers who are kind to employees and don't treat them like trash. But then again, when it comes to services that offer a high quality experience, it's going to attract rich people. And we all know they are infamously out of touch and will probably treat employees like trash. Not to sound extreme, but it's like treating employees like lesser beings because they walk into a restaurant or theme park and know that these people are working for them, forgetting that they're a person with their own life. I know that might be an expectation because their job is literally service, but imagine being so removed from your own humanity that you think this random person is only here for you. And sometimes that treatment can get inside the heads of the employees themselves. When you're working a job that doesn't pay well, you're gonna do your best to earn more. This is especially true for people in food service who earn a lower wage and hope the rest can be made up in tips. They gotta put their best foot forward all the time so they can literally survive. But if you're working with someone difficult and they have high expectations and you're not meeting them, you feel the doom of not getting a good tip. There are also customers who don't tip well or at all. And I've seen discourse online about people leaving a mess or being difficult and not tipping. It just makes you feel for people working these jobs. How can you look at them and not sympathize with what they might be going through? They're not just robots to give you food, they're a person trying to live their life, and they have to work this kind of job to go on doing it. They're students, children, spouses, parents, caretakers, etc. This is why it feels like modern day slavery. There is an apparent lack of respect for people with these kinds of jobs. Before I make my next point, let me just talk about Disney again. In 2024, cast members at Disneyland in California went on strike because they weren't being treated fairly. They worked strenuous hours for little pay, and many of them had to have multiple jobs to supplement their income. An agreement was finally made, but I just find it appalling that this protest had to happen in the first place for Disney to notice that there was something wrong. There's something wrong when the people who make the magic and bring smiles to people go home, and sometimes their homes were their cars, and are in distress because their job wasn't paying them enough for them to live comfortably. There is plenty more to say about the mistreatment of cast members, but that can be another discussion for another day. Part 3: False humanitarianism and it goes back to the community. This idea that giving your money to businesses helps people out is only partially true. You're paying for employees' wages, sure, but there's this false sense of your money contributing to the wider scale that is the community in which the service is located. For example, in the historic town where I went to college, there are lots of tourists. I think the people there who are visiting the hotels and restaurants feel as though they are giving back to this cute little town when they spend their money there. And that's somewhat true, but did you know that businesses are taxed? In college, we learned about this, and there was an emphasis on lodging, like hotels and inns, being taxed. The supposed reasoning behind this tax is that the money would be used to help the local community. But to go back to the example of the college town, I'm not really sure how or if the money is used to help the local community at all. Like many tourist towns, there are a lot of homeless people. There's this famous street in the college town, and it has a lot of homeless people panhandling there. From the time before starting college to a few years after finishing, I would see the same homeless man on this street whenever I went there. I see him and all the other homeless people and wonder if anything has been done for them. It's truly shocking to see the contrasting existences in such close proximity in real time. Tourists walking around and spending their money on food and souvenirs while walking past homeless people asking for money. This is like the nail in the coffin concerning class consciousness in the tourism industry. As far as I see, the money made from tourism does not go back to the community. And if it does, it's not the people within the community that are given help. This is purely an assumption. But who's to say that taxes collected by the counties and states aren't just being put into the pockets of the already rich and powerful? This world is corrupt, money is the root of all evil, of course people in power are going to take advantage of a profitable industry, and the world keeps on turning. But it's the rest of the people who suffer. It's the customers, the employees, the people living in and around these tourist destinations. They get the short end of the stick. I won't say no one cares, but nothing is being done about this glaring issue. And that's why it feels so wrong to contribute to the industry. If the money is supposed to help the greater community, then why isn't it? People who spend money at travel destinations believe they are giving altruistically to those who need it. I've heard in my college classes and out and about how tourism helps because the money earned goes back to the community. But we know it really doesn't. This isn't just an occurrence in Florida. Look at other places in the US like Nevada, California, New York, Hawaii. These are places that get very high amounts of tourism, yet there are still people who live there who struggle to have a home to call their own. Gentrification is another major issue. These issues occur because the desires of the wealthy are put before the well-being of the middle and lower classes. The majority of the population. The hospitality industry is no exception. They cater to those who can afford the high prices, and everyone else is pushed to the side, basically. And people who suffer are not given a voice and are forced to either deal with it or leave. Part 3.5: The Florida Project. The Florida Project is a 2017 film directed by Sean Baker. It follows a 6-year-old girl named Mooney and her unemployed single mother Haley, who both live in a budget motel in Kissimmee, Florida, which is located outside of Walt Disney World. The film has a slice of life feel to it as you watch Mooney get into mischief and have fun with her friends who also live with their parents in these motels. But the adults around her struggle to keep it together. In the film, Haley lost her job and began to rely on Ashley. She is another woman who lives in the motel with her child and works as a waitress at a diner, and Haley asks her for food for Mooney and herself. While living at the motel, she brings Mooney with her as she tries to sell knockoff perfumes to the guests at fancier neighboring hotels. She spends genuine quality time with Mooney and makes her happy, and they watch the Disney World fireworks from the motel lawn. She cares for Mooney, but she struggles because of the financial situation she's in, along with the general unhealthy decisions that she makes. She has a temper and fights with people who are trying to look out for her, like Bobby, the motel manager. She sells herself to make money and isn't very responsible. She wants to take care of Mooney, but it isn't enough. It's the combination of her actions and financial situation that put her residency at the motel in jeopardy, and ultimately they result in her losing custody over Mooney. You might be wondering why mentioning this film is relevant. I know I spent some time talking about it, but what's the point? I think that while this is still a drama film, there is a realness represented in it. Sean Baker and co-writer Chris Bergach were careful to actually understand people that are in the same kind of situation as Mooney and Haley. In fact, they spent over a year doing research. They filmed the movie in Kissimmee and got to know the stories of the families who are living in the motels in the area. They wanted to depict the lives of people who are living this reality and do so in a manner that was accurate and respectful. Thanks to this dedication and passion, the Florida Project garnered positive attention. In 2018, it received 17 nominations and 7 awards, including being on the American Film Institute's Movies of the Year list, and Sean Baker winning Best Director from the New York Film Critics Circle. The rest of the awards went to Brooklyn Prince, who played Mooney, and Willem Dafoe for their performances. The film was critically acclaimed, and many people were in hopes that it would spread awareness about the homelessness crisis, also called hidden homelessness, within the tourism capital. This is something that was very important to Sean Baker as well. He's very interested in making more films that tackle underrepresented issues in America, and I think projects like that are good starts to spread awareness. That's why I'm discussing this in the first place. When systems are in place and make profit at the expense of other human lives and negatively impact the people around them, how can we condone that? How can we become more aware of that and make a positive change? The tourism industry cannot be changed overnight. There are issues within that make things complicated, like over-tourism, sustainability, and the changing economy. This leaves little time for focus on the issues I talked about. The main issue for them is maintaining control over the market amidst ever-changing factors, and of course, still being able to make a profit. It's still worth recognizing the faults of the industry. I don't know the first thing about making actual change, but it is my hope that someone with enough power and influence will finally care enough to take action. Maybe trends will change. Who knows? I previously said that I didn't want to look back as far as hospitality goes. When I started college, I thought it was something completely different than what it actually is. I know there were other starry-eyed students who wanted to work in theme parks, restaurants, hotels, and wedding venues. These young people really wanted to do something good for others, and the world chewed them up and spat them out. I don't talk to many peers from college anymore, but I do follow them on Instagram and see their stories. Not all of them continued a career in hospitality. The best fallback for a hospitality major is business, management, or marketing, because hospitality majors needed that information anyway. But it's pretty sad to see that hospitality and tourism was not something they could continue in, because it was something they once had a passion for. Same goes for me, except I can't even get behind contributing to business. It all just feels wrong. This doesn't mean I'm writing hospitality and tourism off completely. I still see its potential. It gives people jobs, it contributes to the economy, and it can help local businesses get traffic. But it's hard to ignore and go along with the issues that I see and feel passionately about. Until the heart of hospitality and tourism changes, I don't see my future in it. I still hope that it can become what I dreamed it was when I was a kid. An environment that prioritizes the happiness of the customers while also bearing the well-being of the employees in mind, not being motivated by greed, but by the desire to make people happy and use that profit to give back to people in need. Hi everyone! If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. I hope you got something out of it. If you liked this video, press the thumbs up button. If you have anything you'd like to comment on, leave it in the comments section below. I encourage respectful discussion and sharing thoughts. Maybe someone you know would be interested in watching this video, so share it freely. If you're interested in anything else I have to talk about, subscribe to my channel and be on the lookout for more. Or you can be notified when I post by pushing the bell icon. Again, thank you so much for watching. You can call me Rolly, and I'll see you soon.